Hello, welcome to the Week 9 review from the Snap UK. Whilst Gary and 4th Inches are on injured reserve, me, Jim and Griff will take you through all the weekend's action, from the brilliant Bills to the sloppy Seahawks and the brutal Bugs. All this coming up on the Snap UK. Hello, welcome to the Week 9 review from the Snap UK. Another busy weekend, so we'll go straight into the games. Of course, it is just me, Jim, and Griff this week. 4th Inches and Gilo are on injured reserve.
Like the rest of the league.
Like half the league, yeah.
But, can we only designate one of them to return? Which one are we picking?
Well, I'm related
we'll come back
to
to
one,
that
so
during
I'll back out. But let's just start with Thursday night's game because it's
it was first.
It was first, effectively. And,
get your sadness out of the way, Jim, before we get to mine later. That's fine.
Well, it's nice I can be the happy one this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing about this game was that it was on Thursday night, so it meant I could just spend all Sunday watching football, not worrying about having the 49ers lose. So, yeah, that's a positive. I don't think anything in the game was a big surprise. Aaron Rodgers played really well. The 49ers defense was okay, but they're coming up against a Hall of Fame quarterback and a decent offense. And the Packers defense isn't brilliant, but it was coming up against Nick Mullins. That's about all you can say about that, really. I don't think there's. We were talking about the schedule of the last night, and I questioned why the 49ers was first, and we said because it was the first game. It's like, okay, that's logical, but aside from Fred Warner had another outstanding game. I think some of the comments that came out of the game afterwards around Aaron Rodgers about Warner were wholly justified. I think he's playing at an all-pro level at the moment. But aside from that, there was no great surprises. Packers played well. I think they're one of the form teams in the league. 49ers are suffering of injuries across the board. It's not getting any better, and they lost.
Yeah. At one point, the score it was sort of flattering to 49ers because the Green Bay were rampant. And
it was only. it was in the fourth quarter we scored 14 points. So really, you could probably say this should have been 34-3, and I wouldn't be complaining even then.
Yeah, no, it was just a team that, and as well, like they didn't really have to use Aaron Jones. Like he came in, he started the game on fire. He was just bounding through that defense, and then luckily, they've also got Devontae Adams, and it was one of the games where Valdez-Scantling can actually catch a ball. Although I started off the night by he made a couple of drops, and I was like, "Oh, are the Packers going to regret not picking up Kenny Stills?" And then I was just too tired to retract that by the time he'd scored two really long touchdowns. Yeah.
Sorry, John. On Sunday night, I made a couple of too early to say calls. So
yeah, you did. That's no wonder you've got more kids than the average, is it?
Fair comment. I'll take that one.
But yeah, no, it was
comical. It really was.
Yeah, just gonna keep my mouth shut on what's happened this week.
Look, it was fairly one-sided. The Niners are basically suffering the same problem again and again, which is the injury bug. But I do want to discuss very briefly the Jimmy Garoppolo problem, because bar one epic fail early in this season. Nick Mullins never looked anything worse than Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's the
Their
problem,
career
isn't
numbers
it?
are extremely similar. The difference is Nick Mullins earns $750,000 a season, and Jimmy Garoppolo earns $17 million a season or something stupid. It's like you could build a much deeper squad without Jimmy Garoppolo on your books, and I think it's edging that way. I don't see what he gives this team that you can't get out of Nick Mullins and one or two other players you can bring in because you're not carrying Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. There's a good chance I'll try and get out that contract at the end of this year. I said it last week. I don't think Kyle Shanahan's got any trust in him. I think if you look at when he came over to the 49ers, I think the rumours were that Shanahan really wanted to sign Kirk Cousins that year. God knows why. I mean, but maybe that was a lucky escape. Who knows? But I do feel that they're quite similar quarterbacks in that they're not very spectacular. They're probably slightly above average on a good day. But the biggest problem with Garoppolo is consistency. You just don't trust him to have a good game every week. I was sitting there on Sunday kind of watching a multitude of quarterbacks have, old and young, have amazing games. And the thought that went through my mind is, especially as I was watching the Dolphins, who haven't had a good quarterback for years, the thought that went through my mind was, I wonder what it's like to support a team where you've got trust in your quarterback, and you can just trust that he's going to get you out of a fix or he's going to get you out of a hole. Whenever I've watched Garoppolo, and this is dating back this is last year as well when we went to the Super Bowl, I've never had the trust in him that he's going to win a game for us. He's not a quarterback that wins games for the 49ers. Bucky Brooks on the Move to Sticks podcast talks about trucks and trailers. The truck being a quarterback which pulls his team along, and the trailer being the quarterback which just goes along with the team. And Garoppolo is the ultimate trailer. He doesn't pull his team along. He does a job, but that's about it. You look for the defense to win this team, or you look for the running. You look for the defense to win games for this team, or you look for the running backs to win games for this team. You don't look for Garoppolo to win games for this team because he doesn't. And I think that's what needs to change going into next year.
$26.5 million for Garoppolo this year, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gets a bit tricky. It's the base salary doesn't go down, but the dead money goes down after this year.
Yeah, it goes. The dead cap goes down to 2.8 million.
Who he reminds me of? You say Kirk Cousins. I think that's good, but in terms of the contract, the weight of expectation that sort of hangs around him, that almost seems to bring him down, is very much Osweiler-esque. It's like not as bad as Osweiler, but it's the same issue whereby we thought he would be able to carry a franchise. And like you say, he's just attached to it and isn't really making the difference that he should do. Osweiler's plummet was bigger, but it's the same issue. And I think he could end up the same way, because who's going to look at this and think, yeah, that's a contract I want to take on. That's a player that's going to make my team better.
Well, that's just it. I think at the end, into next year, it only cost them $2.8 million to get rid of him. So I think move on. Like there's a lot of, there's 3 great quarterbacks coming into the draft next year, but there's also some other good, probably 2 other good quarterbacks in Zach Wilson and Kyle Trask, who are going to be names that we're going to see mentioned, who probably, if they weren't quarterbacks, they might not be in the first round, but because they are, and because you have a premium on quarterbacks, and I think 49ers will be in that range, then I think they're names that are going to be linked to the 49ers going into next year.
I don't think he's getting enough love at all. He's doing a lot with not a massive amount of Florida.
Yeah.
He looks special.
It does look good. But there's also other, there are other options. We've mentioned it before. Like Shanahan's got a relationship with Matt Ryan from his time at the Falcons. If the Falcons do go into full rebuild, is there an option there that they can pick up Ryan? That will be wholly dependent on getting rid of Garoppolo and getting rid of the contract, because we still then need to pay Ryan. So Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the end for Garoppolo. I think if he's still playing in 49ers red next year, I think we'll all be very depressed.
I won't be. And
Well, no,
he
you
won't be. He'll still be another £25 million richer.
$25 million.
$25 million, yeah. It's the same thing nowadays, really. But yeah. Well, let's move on to Bills 44, Seahawks 34.
And there was a get-right game, if ever a team needed a get-right game, it's just play the Seahawks defense. Look, this sort of game is what Josh Allen is built for. Can I throw it deep over this team's head? My players will outpace theirs. Yes. And do you know what the biggest difference maker was? John Brown. John Brown looked fit for the first time since about week 2. And the Seahawks have got nothing. They cannot cope with the deep threat. They've allowed 2,897 passing yards, which is the most by any team through their first 8 games since the Super Bowl era started. And it just looks like us playing on defense.
Yeah. What made me laugh? What made me laugh at the end of the match was a quote from Pete Carroll saying, I think we had a good plan to deal with their running game. And it's like, well, the Bills have got an okay running game. It's not terrible, but it's not like, it's not Dalvin Cook that they're dealing with there or Derrick Henry. Like, everything on that offense, it's all about Josh Allen now. And great for Bills fans. It's great for Josh Allen. But then I think they sacked him something like 7 times. It's like, okay, you got a good pass rush. But he's the type of quarterback who, he's big enough and sturdy enough that you can hit him a few times and he's not going to fall apart. He's a big old guy. But B, you're right, he can launch it long, and he's got those receivers who can get deep as well in John Brown, but also Stefan Diggs as well. So I don't understand why like other teams back off of Buffalo to take away some of those passing options. Seahawks just seem to blitz him the whole time, and like it was fine because they got receivers who can get open quite quickly, and Josh Allen's got the ability to find them.
I mean, from this weekend, what running game at all? Because I looked at the first 35 plays, 31 of them were throws.
Yeah, because that's all they needed to do. Zach Moss, 9 carries, 18 yards, did have a touchdown. Devin Singletary, 2 carries for 1 yard. Like, they didn't need, there was no need. Stefan Diggs, 9 receptions, 118 yards on 12 targets. John Brown, 8 receptions, 99 yards on 11 targets. Like, those two alone just decimated the Seahawks. Beasley had 40 yards, I think. Like,
you've got
the Bills. The way the Bills will win is to go through the air, and their backup will be Josh Allen will scramble. Well, he didn't have to. He had 14 yards on the ground and a touchdown. But it seemed that the Seahawks hadn't watched any tape this season.
Yeah. And they picked up Jamal Adams, who he's a good safety, but he's not Earl Thomas in terms of like a covering safety who will help out the cornerbacks. And they haven't got any quality at cornerback anymore. Like this, I think you said you hit the nail on the head, Griff, earlier. So you can pass in this team. Like the pass rush had a good game on Sunday, but otherwise it's not been a strength for theirs. And aside from Bobby Wagner and now Jamal Adams, who does a lot of good work but can't be relied upon for fitness or for being that covering type safety, you can pass on this team for hundreds of yards, and that's exactly what the Bills did.
I mean, I'm not sure what this game said about the Seahawks beyond if you don't have some form of defense, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. Russell Wilson had 4 turnovers in this game because he was asked to do everything. And we're going to get on to Brady later. We've had it in the past with Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. If you do not help them, they will lose the game because it doesn't matter. One player never ever wins a game on his own. It doesn't happen. And it's almost like the Seahawks have decided, all right, we'll let Russ cook. The other guys. They've got to go out and play as well. And they don't. nothing. And haven't they just given Pete Carroll a contract extension?
5-year contract, yeah.
And look, he deserves it. They're a great team, but it seemed like an odd time to announce it when they don't have an identity, really.
Well, they've got an identity, and it's Russell Wilson. I think unless he's playing at MVP caliber level, he can't afford. Like, the Seahawks can't afford him to play anything less than that, because you're right. There's no one else there that can kind of dig them out of the hole. He's the only one that you can't rely on that defense. And unless he's playing absolutely brilliantly, they're going to lose. They're going to lose games.
This was the first time in a while the complete absence of an O-line seemed to be really affecting. Like, normally you can let, as I say, they let Russell Wilson cook, but he was under so much pressure all the time. There's too many. There's just too much about the Seahawks that isn't ready, and I mean, luckily you've got an MVP caliber quarterback. But I do feel, because it was tough to watch at some points, Yeah. And also hilarious.
They've got, DK Metcalf, David Moore, Tyler Lockett. That's proved to be a really good trio of pass catchers. The backfield is concerning. DJ Dallas is an average running back. Travis Homer's a nothing running back. Alex Collins, I mean, who'd even remembered Alex Collins got picked up in the first round a few years ago by the Ravens? Yeah. He's just come off the practice squad, but they're not helping Wilson out. There's just not enough there. So beyond heave the ball down the field to DK Metcalf, that's it. And he's been picked off 3 times in the end zone this year. I think he only got picked off once in the last 30 games in the end zone. It's some crazy stat. It's because he's doing everything. And balance. Gary talks about balance when he's here. This is the least balanced team in the league, and I include the Bears in that.
I was going to say, and I was going to bring this up more on the Bears. If you put the Bears defense with that offense, that's a Super Bowl winning team. But you can't have one without the other. You can't go to the extremes where you're amazing on one side of the ball and you've got absolutely nothing on the other side of the ball. And that's what both the Bears and the Seahawks are at the moment in different ways.
For the Seahawks, Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde have chances to come back this week, which would help.
Yeah. Do they play cornerback?
But I'm saying it helps their offense. It's no help to their defense at all. But they do miss Chris Carson, which is it still seems strange to me, because I always thought he was toss, but he's turned out to be quite good.
He's turned out to be all right.
Although, they play the Rams this week, so a lot of fun there. Although the Seahawks aren't in the NFC East, so Seahawks will win.
Rams coming off bye though. It's a tough game.
It's not an easy game.
Should we move on to the one of the talking points of the weekend, which was Bucks 3, Saints 38. The Saints were superb, quite frankly. It helps, of course. It helps on offense when you get Michael Thomas back, and he seemed to be up for it. And on the other side, they just swarmed Brady. And I'll go back when the Giants showed that you can get at Brady, you can confuse him, and the Saints just perfected it this week. It was brilliant. I'm not Brady's biggest fan. I'm not gonna lie. I watched it with tears in my eyes, crying with laughter. It was great. Especially, sorry.
The best thing about this game, surely, was Jameis Winston coming on, completing 1 of 1 for 12 yards.
Yeah.
And then in the interviews afterwards, just strutting around like, I won that game.
He ate the W, didn't he?
Yeah.
Again.
God.
I love him.
I thought...
Fair play.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill was 2 of 2 for 48 yards.
But it's about time that they used him in the passing game, because it was getting predictable what they were going to use him for. It's like as soon as he came on, everyone knew, all right, this is going to be a running game. This is going to be wild card running play. And then when he came on, and he saw the first pass. It's like, oh, brilliant! They're doing something different with him, and he can pass the ball. He's got a good pass. So that was really good to see. It was really good for Sean Payton to actually use him as a gadget play quarterback.
54 rushing yards as well on 7 carries. Though. I mean, he is a round weapon. He outrushed Alvin Kamara this week.
But would he have got all those rushing yards if they're not throwing in a pass as well? Because suddenly you've suddenly got the defense suddenly have to think about it and go, hang on, he passed last time. He doesn't usually do that. We're going to back off a little bit just in case. Whereas previously, as soon as he come on, it's like, let's just blitz and block up the run.
Stale, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So Sean Payton's always sung his praises highly. They're paying him a lot of money. I think they should be using him in more ways. And fair play. I thought this is the first time this season that Saints defense have properly turned up, and in particular the pass rush. And you said it, where they actually got to Brady, and this has been a good offensive line for Tampa. And it was good to see players like Marcus Davenport really, remember they gave up 2 first-round picks for Davenport, and he's been okay. He's been decent enough, but not being like a 2 first-round pick player. I think this is the first time I looked at him and gone, right, I can see where you're going with him. I can see him progressing into a good player, which you can build the defense around. And Brady just couldn't. It's always been said, if you can get to Brady, you can unsettle him. You stand a chance, and that's exactly what the Saints defense are able to do.
He has never been 30 or more points down at half time in 294 career games until this weekend. And we know that the key to beating Brady is get him off his mark. Well, that's exactly what they did. It's clearly a problem as he gets older. I still don't think this is the end of the world. The biggest problem with this is now that New Orleans will hold the tiebreaker, so the Bucs have to actually overhaul them. But the Buccaneers are still a shoo-in for the playoffs for me, and it's just a bad matchup when they play New Orleans. I don't. That's all I really took from this game. I don't really see it as a massive. It's a huge defeat singularly, but I don't think it represents what the season will be for the Bucs. They're going to get Antonio Brown involved. They'll recover. They'll just come back. It'll be like it never happened next week, I should think. Drew Brees, though, becoming the first quarterback to defeat Brady twice in a single regular season. That's insane.
That's nuts, isn't it?
What the hell?
Brady's been playing the AFC East for the last 20-odd years. That's how no one's ever done it.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, the Jets were good for a few years. You'd just think by accident that would happen.
Yeah, potentially. But I mean, it was only you think about how many times the Bills have not beaten the Patriots in their own backyard. It was only last week they did that for the first time in 7 years. So that's where it comes from, right?
I suppose so, but you don't realise the lack of competition he's faced can also aligned with the fact that he's been on the best coach team for 18 of the 20 years he was there or whatever. You don't think about it until these little gems pop up. But I think that's incredible. They'll get it right. It won't be a problem. But it, for me, cements the Saints as one of the best teams, because if you can put these numbers up on a defense that good, you've always got a chance.
Yeah. I think if you look at the stats for the week, and you look at kind of especially in the receiving game for the Saints. All right, Michael Thomas 5 receptions, 51 yards. That's distinctly average for Michael Thomas. But then there's other players behind him who have been playing they've been playing well in his absence, and they continue to play well going into this match as well. Deontay Harris has played well. Traquan Smith has had good games. He didn't do much on Sunday, but he's had good games. Emmanuel Sanders has been injured, but he's come back and had a good game. He's always going to play well because he's a good player. I really like the emergence of Adam Troutman, the tight end who they picked up in the draft. And when they did pick him up, I remember seeing that pick and going, he's exactly the type of tight end that Drew Brees wants. And in a couple of years, I think he's going to be a stupendously good tight end, and probably one of those tight ends that gets picked up in fantasy quite early on every year.
That's a big shout.
Yeah, I know. I like to make big shouts every so often. And I also like the name Adam Troutman. I don't know why it appeals.
Well, I look forward to you picking him up and him being a massive fantasy flop.
I mean, if I pick him up and he's playing for the Saints, he will be a fantasy flop. It's almost a guarantee.
Well, should we move on to the next game, which is Chiefs 33, Panthers 31. Quite a close game. The return of McCaffrey, the sort of quiet resurgence of the Panthers continues. It was just a lot of fun, this one.
It was a good game, wasn't it? I spoke to our friend Chris, who's a Carolina Panthers fan, and we were chatting after the game, and I said, "You've got to be pretty happy with that game. You're playing against the Chiefs, who I think still the best team in football. You're playing in their stadium at home. You've got a very young team, like across the board, especially on defense, and you've given the Chiefs a really good game there. They had a good chance to snatch the lead at the end. I thought Bridgewater was outstanding on Sunday. Had one of his best games I've seen him play since he's come back from that horrible knee injury. And I said it before, I love what Matt Rule's doing with this team. A couple more pieces on defense, and this could be a really, really good team.
Yeah, I think keeping McCaffrey fit is key, and we already know he may not be fit for this week. That durability could become a problem. Once they're mathematically out of the playoff race, they shut him down for the year because this next year will be really good, and they're going to need him. Mike Davis has done a brilliant job filling in. Why would you risk it? Why would you even touch that with a stick? He's got 6 touchdowns in 3 games played. He's easily one of the best 3 running backs in the league when he's fit. But if your team's not in contention, why are you using him? They only used Mike Davis once on a carry play. He had 5 receptions, but it's too much. It's too much too soon for a player who's been out injured, and they need to be wary of that.
I do agree with you. But they were in contention with it in this game right up until the end.
Yeah.
And I think going into this game, they're 3-5 in an NFC, which I don't think is as good as it has been in past years. I think they're looking at it and go, you know what? I know the Saints, I know the Bucks are still good teams. They're gonna top that division, but we could still sneak a wild card place here. And I think that's why they kind of kept playing. They kept McCaffrey on the team. I think if this had gone the other way, it'd probably gone. I think most people looked at this game and probably said Chiefs by between 7 and 10 points minimum. I think if that was the case and that had gone to that type of form, I think they would have taken him out quite early on. But I think just because they were still in it, they kept using him. And maybe they're going to pay for that in the long run for when it comes to his fitness.
Yeah, I mean, Curtis Samuel deserves some praise. He's been playing really well this season. And he's becoming a bit of a gadget player as well. They've been using him in the rushing game. I'm just really impressed with what Matt Rule is doing, considering a lot of people predicted the Panthers to only have 1 or 2 wins this season.
Yeah.
The Teddy Bridgewater move might be the shrewdest off-season move that no one's really talking about, because that's paying dividends. 36 of 49, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I think he might have 4 picks on the year, something like that. It's not a lot. He looks back to his best year with the Vikings. Yeah. We were excited that year because he looked really, really good. And I don't know, like, if he doesn't show ill effects of that knee injury and they continue to surround him with talent, he's your quarterback for the next 10 years.
Yeah, easily. And I think the talent they put around him as well is the right type of talent. Like that offense is just all based on speed. And I from the running back, but also you talk about Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson's really quick, DJ Moore's really quick. Even the tight end, Isaiah Thomas, has got a decent turn of pace on him. So you're not asking Bridgewater to throw
Ian Thomas,
sorry. You're not asking Bridgewater to throw, massive passes, 80 yards or 50, 40 yards long. You're asking it just to get the ball into the hands of the playmakers and let them do the job, and they're responding at the moment.
Yep.
with regards to the Chiefs, I mean, should we be concerned that they're capable of giving up big points at any time? Is that a problem? Because I know we're going to get to the power rankings later, and I've seen them, and I know what the discussion is going to be first up. And I'll tell you, the Chiefs' defense worries me. I don't think it's as good as half a dozen teams in the league at least. And I think you can, on any given day, put up between 25 and 30 points on this team because they think they'll always outscore you. And sooner or later, that won't work.
There's not been many games where you're right. They've not given up a decent, like quite a large level of point. Like looking through kind of the games they played this season, they gave up 20 against the Texans, 20 against the Chargers, 20 against the Ravens, 10 against the Patriots, 40 against the Raiders, and they lost. 17 against the Bills, 16 against the Broncos, 9 against the Jets, and then 31 against the Panthers. It's only been the Patriots and the Jets, who we'll talk about at the end of the program, that have kind of struggled to score against them. Every other team is putting pretty decent points on them. So I don't think that the defense is not as good as it was last year. It's not a top 10 defense. It seems to just about do enough, but I just think when you've got that offense with all the weapons and you've got Patrick Mahomes, it's not a case of what it is in the Seahawks where there just is nothing on defense. There is something there. You're not wholly relying on the offense, but there is a heavy weight on the offense. I think you're right.
Mahomes as well, fastest quarterback since 1970 to reach 100 career touchdown passes, beating Dan Marino.
Yeah, well,
not a surprise.
No.
No. I will say I think we were having this same discussion last year I think the Chiefs can be beaten on defense, and look what happened. But let's just see how it goes. So next one is Colts 10, Ravens 24, and
where do you want to start?
Well, can we start with Philip Rivers and the worst tackle attempt that's ever been made?
The guy was falling. He was falling over anyway. I mean,
I'm giving him credit for trying.
Yeah, exactly. Like 39-year-old quarterback.
It wasn't like where you should be starting. Don't worry about the fact that Philip Rivers runs like your nan, fell over and couldn't tackle anything. Can we look at the value that Marlon Mack has to this team now he's not there? Because their running game has gone to
it's terrible, isn't it?
Philip Rivers he's not there to throw 30 passes a week. You're supposed to defend well, run the ball, and score a few touchdowns with Rivers. And look, I've always said Marlon Mack is a really good running back. He is getting better each week this team plays without him.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor, what's that?
I don't know. We had high hopes for Jonathan Taylor. I had high hopes for Jonathan Taylor. And let's not rule him out completely. He's only played 8 games in the NFL so far, but he's not coveting himself in glory at the moment. And I was, bringing about another kind of Bears comparison. I was chatting about David Montgomery on Sunday. I said the Bears' offensive line is just terrible. This Colts offensive line is probably one of the best in the league.
Yeah.
So he hasn't got the excuse of I'm getting hit as soon as I get the ball. Like he's got time and he's got a touchdown. And he's had some good games in the past, but I think the last 3 or 4 weeks just not. He's not been there. I think he's been overtaken the pecking order by Jordan Wilkins and Naeem Hines.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of years ago, I had big hopes on Jordan Wilkins because I thought he was a sneaky low draft pick, and I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And then he's done nothing.
It's just been but
Marlon Mack's the only one who sort of
you could put your house in fantasy on Marlon Mack being double digits every week. None of these other running backs on this team inspire that confidence. They've all got some individual talent trait, but he was by far the best. He was a little bit maligned because they didn't win enough games, but his value continues to rise in his absence. This was a 10-7 lead for the Colts at halftime. The defense was playing really well, and then they conceded 17 straight unanswered points. Rivers wasn't getting anything going. The running game can't get anything going. A little bit of it for me is coaching. I think when Frank Reich gets it right, it's brilliant. And when he gets it wrong, he can't change it around quick enough. Yeah. I don't know whether that comes back to not having the players. But I don't know. There's something missing. I mean, Michael Pittman, your leading receiver, Zach Pascal. There's something missing. You've got no Marlon Mack and
no T.Y. No T.Y. Hilton as well.
No T.Y., but he's not been T.Y. Hilton.
He's not been fit. Yeah.
So there's a piece missing there somewhere on the offense. This was the first week in a long time where Trey Burton's done nothing. He had one catch for 6 yards. There's a gap at wide receiver, and that's been magnified by the loss early in the season of Marlon Mack. That is what is the pitfall for the Colts.
If you're the Colts going into the draft next year, if you're a Colts fan, I think you're wholly expecting the Colts to pick up a really good wide receiver or a really, really good running back who is a good pass catching running back as well. Because I think that on the defense side of the ball, I know we've not spoken about it. I think they're playing brilliantly. I think they had Lamar Jackson's number pretty much the whole game. You can look at, yes, the scoreline's 24-10, but a good 10 of those points came from the defense in terms of like the Jonathan Taylor fumble, which got returned for a touchdown, and then the interception, which shouldn't have been an interception but was, which earned them another 3 points. So if you're taking those points off and it's 14-10, you're like, oh, that's the game. Like, the Colts defense managed. They didn't get many sacks, but you don't get many sacks versus Lamar Jackson. But they got 11 tackles for loss on the game. Like, they were getting into the backfield of the Ravens consistently, and they properly shut up the running game. Lamar Jackson had 58 yards, but apart from that, the running backs J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards on the other side of the ball, they couldn't get anything done either because that Colts defense and the defensive line led by ex-49er DeForest Buckner was just brilliant. I think if they can figure out, either the Colts, if the Colts can figure out a running game, or one of these receivers can actually start playing well, I still think this is a really good team. But it's very much dependent on that. Can we talk about the interception, which was an interception, but really I don't think should have been because it was Marcus Peters, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, fair play for John Harbaugh for throwing the challenge flag. That's no complaints there. But if that had been a wide receiver and there had been a thrown to him, that had been ruled that would have been a pass drop. No doubt about it.
I think everyone was surprised that even John Harbaugh must have been surprised that gamble paid off because that's never an interception. There was no football move. There was no, he's definitely got the ball. He's definitely secured the ball. It was in, it was out. He was down. That was it. I couldn't believe it when they called it an interception. It's one of those random pieces of officiating. Ultimately, I don't think it makes a great deal of difference, which is why it hasn't had more airtime.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating because how many times do we see really good catches from wide receivers and then they hit the deck and the ball comes out and you instantly think, okay, that's not going to be a catch, even though I'm pretty sure he caught that ball.
Yeah.
you'd much rather see it the other way around. But
yeah, I mean, he did. For the sake of listeners who are not seeing it, he did catch it, but then he dropped it very, very quickly afterwards as well.
You've never seen that given before, ever.
No, like I said, you're right. There was no football movement. He caught it in midair, kind of landed, and then it was gone. And I think any other place on the pitch, and I think this is probably one of the biggest frustration. I think this is why kind of following that, NFL Twitter blew up with everyone moaning about it. Is there's been such argument about what's a catch and what's not a catch, and it feels like there's one rule on that for offensive players, and now there's seemingly a different rule for defensive players. And I think all that anyone asks for is just a level of consistency. So
yeah, I don't think as well because when you're watching it, of course, what they show you is it in slow motion, which gives you no context to it at all because you can't judge it. But yeah, it's they just kept showing it in slow motion. You just wanted to, show me it properly.
Yeah.
And then they did. You're like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
I see next up on our running order, it's Titans Bears. So Titans 24, Bears 17. Before we get into the game, the Bears are now 5-4. The Colts are 5-3 because they had their bye. Which one of those 5-win teams is better placed for a playoff run?
Between
the Colts.
I'd say the Colts, just because of the Vikings' resurgence in the last couple of weeks. I think probably before...
Nothing to do with the Colts themselves, then?
No, well, I think the Colts are a better overall team than the Bears because they've got a good defense and they're not terrible on offense. But I think the NFC North is a more competitive division now than the AFC South is.
Sure, I'm just asking because they're similarly poised teams. And,
yeah.
I'm not sure either of them has the right quarterback in place. And
no,
so
definitely
it
not.
just interests me. They're both very good defenses that struggle to win games where you think they should. Anyway, so Bears 17, Titans 24. Fire away. Gary's not here, so I promised him I would jump in on this. The Matt Nagy is not getting enough criticism because he's supposed to be an offensive genius. Now, Nick Foles is committing turnovers like he's Mark Sanchez, generally speaking. I think he's turned the ball over once every week at least.
He didn't turn it over this week, did he?
Did he not fumble the ball away this week?
No, we had no fumbles this week.
Shoot me down, but 36-52, like he put up yards at the end. Garbage time rubbish, fine.
Yeah.
But where are the trick plays? Where is
something? And I know we were texting about it yesterday and Sunday. I had a good conversation with a Bears mate. I was like, how do you watch this? How do you watch this too? He watches Game Pass every week. I was like, how? It was like, it must be the most frustrating watch on throughout the whole league because they've got such a good defense and they've just got nothing on offense. Like Nick Foles, I don't think he's the culprit. I like David Montgomery as a running back, but he seems to have no chance whatsoever. That offensive line, I said it earlier, is absolutely terrible. It's banged up in terms of injuries, but it's also suffering from people not there because they're held out because of the COVID issue. But you're right. There's no, unlike other coaches, there's no kind of gimmicky play to try and create something. We were saying, we said on the podcast, I was saying to my friends, well, what about putting Trubisky? It's like, to be honest with you, I think Trubisky would be even worse. I think the decision making of Foles is so much better than what Trubisky's was. I think you saw elements of the lack of decision making that Trubisky has last year, where there'll be receivers who are just wide open and he'd just not pass them. He said, at least if that happens, then Foles stands a better chance of actually passing to them than Trubisky. But that's just not happening at the moment. And it would point the defense is, I think, it's brilliant. Like this is one of the few games which Derrick Henry, he got 68 yards. They probably bottled him up. Ryan Tannehill had a very average game. And Tennessee's offense is good, but they properly bottled up that offense. And if they could just get something, anything from an offense, they would be in a better position. They've still got a winning record, so they're still in with a chance. But every week this goes on, it's getting even more desperate.
Getting harder to defend, right?
Yeah, very much so.
I will give myself a bit of credit. He's got 7 interceptions in 7 games, is where I was going with the.
Yeah.
This was his first game without a pick. 10 touchdowns in that same time, and they've only won 2 of those games, I think. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with this. They'd be better off without Mitchell Trubisky. Like, at least with him, you knew there was always a running play could happen.
But
they were winning games under Trubisky.
Yeah,
not anymore.
He has got the ability to run. I fully agree with you there. But he wasn't, though. That was the problem.
That's scheme.
Potentially.
I think Matt Nagy's run out of ideas. There's so little inspiration. Here's an example. Who's their trickiest player on their squad? I would say it's Cordero Patterson.
Yeah.
Who has been a great trick, one performance per game player on every squad he's been on, right? He's never a superstar, but Vikings, Patriots, I think he was somewhere else as well. Like, once a week, you got one play out of Cordero Patterson where he broke free and did. It's just not happening because Matt Nagy is not scheming these things for him anymore, and I think he's an underutilized player. Their single longest rush of the day was Barcavius Mingo on a fake punt with 11 yards. And what did they do? They then went 3 and out from that game. And you're like, you've got nothing.
I completely agree.
Because of the Foles-Trubisky issue, Matt Nagy has deflected a little bit of criticism away from him. And this is the second season in a row where they've looked like this. And I just think Nick Foles is a Super Bowl winner. We know he's capable. He's not anything above league average, but he's capable.
Yep.
But you have to build an offense around his average capability. And they're not doing it. It's just like they thought he would come in and do, what did he do with the Eagles a few years ago? 27-2. Touchdowns to interceptions. It's never going to happen again.
The Bears don't play in Philadelphia. That's the problem.
The Bears don't have the Philly O-line, which
is the biggest.
He's been sacked 16 times this season, like already. So, I'm just saying, I think time to look at Matt Nagy a little bit.
I agree. I agree. But there's no point mentioning Trubisky. I think the relationship between Nagy and Trubisky has gone so much.
Yeah.
It's like asking, whenever any quarterback gets injured, bring Cap. It's one of those conversations. It's just not happening. It ain't happening. The Trubisky and the Bears is over. And do you know what? I think. Do you know what? I look at Trubisky and I think, do you know what? I bet he could do a half-decent job at somewhere like the Colts, where if you protect him and you have Frank Reich, who could scheme for him, I think you'd be fine. But in Chicago, it is over.
He'll get another chance somewhere else. And I'm worried it might be the Patriots. But he'll get a chance somewhere else.
It's not going to be the Patriots.
But he needs a coach who can coach to his ability or his lack of ability or whatever his difference-making ability is. And they've just run out of patience with him there.
But this is what I don't understand. It's like 2 years ago, they were getting a lot out of him under Matt Nagy. When the first year Matt Nagy was in charge of Chicago, he was playing well. They got to the playoffs, and he was they were like, right, the coaching hires worked. He's working well with the quarterback. We've got Khalil Mack leading the defense. It was a legit team, the Bears, and last year it just fell by the wayside. And this year it's just they've been hurt by injuries and they've been hurt by COVID, but I think you're right. There's no scheming to play to your strengths and away from your weakness. You look at kind of Belichick with what he does. He's like, he recognizes the strengths in his players and he works to that. It feels like Nagy is just kind of carrying on with the same old thing and hoping things will change.
Okay, before we move on from this, I've got another question to ask regarding the Titans. what the hell has happened to Jonnu Smith? Right? Week 1, 7 targets. Week 2, 5 targets. Week 3, 8 targets. Week 4, 7 targets. And since then, a total of 10 targets in 4 games. Right?
Well,
he's
come
one
off an
of
injury, hasn't he?
the biggest difference makers. He's huge for them.
Ryan Tannehill only threw the ball 21 times and had 10 completions.
There were 14 punts in this game.
Yeah. AJ Brown is back and he's fit now, and I think that takes some of his targets away. I think Corey Davis is also, he didn't have a good game on Sunday. I'm not saying that, but I think he's also had a few more targets.
Corey Davis had no catches for no yards.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. He didn't have a good game on Sunday. But he has had good games in previous week. I think Anthony Ferguson has also had a decent level of targets. I think you've got 2 tight ends there who are probably of equal ability, and you've got 2 decent wide receivers. And let's not forget, this is a running team first. So Derrick Henry is going to get most of the ball.
Yeah, that's true.
Wasn't he injured as well at one point, like week 6?
He got injured in week 6. Yeah, sure. And subsequently, his share of the offense has gone down. But this week they've squeaked past a terrible Bears offense, and they've lost the previous 2 games. And basically, when he doesn't have a high number of targets, they look inefficient on offense because he is the safety blanket that most teams have to have. And all of a sudden, they've just decided we're going to use Ferguson, we're going to try and air it out now AJ Brown's back. And I wonder if they're getting away slightly from what Tannehill is good at. That's all. Just a thought.
I agree. I think they aren't as good when they're not using Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is a difference maker for them. But as well, they have played the Bears defense, which is still a good defense. Mm-hmm. And also one of those losses was the Steelers. Yeah. So, and
they were unbeaten before that as well.
Exactly.
They didn't they?
Yeah, the game in between is the Bengals, and maybe they just went. I think that was a game where
everything went
Henry
wrong.
was dominating, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So let's see what happens this coming week, because I think who have they got? The Colts.
That's an important match.
Yeah.
For the AFC South, because that effectively is probably going to decide who wins or who goes through as a division winner and who's going through as a wild card play. So
yeah, I think so.
And and the Bears as well face the Vikings, which is also hugely important in their division.
Yep.
But
come on, you've created a nice segue there.
Well, shall we move on to the Vikings 34, Lions 20?
Sorry,
it's almost as if sometimes I write this stuff down beforehand.
Oh no, you pronounced the Minnesota Vikings wrong. You actually went to pronounce it Dalvin Cook 34, Detroit Lions 20.
We've been doing this for too long because I knew what that joke was going to be. So Dalvin Cook beat the Lions all by himself.
More or less, yeah.
And crikey, there's not a lot else to say about this game. But Dalvin Cook, 22 carries, 206 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. And he also had 2 receptions for 46 yards.
And they took him out in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They played Madison.
Who, by the way, had 12 carries for 69 yards. Lions defense is bad. But this is a team that needs to play this way to win.
Oh, God,
Kirk Cousins had 20 total attempts, and he actually racked up decent yardage, 220 yards, 3 touchdowns, because the Lions were so absolutely blown away by the running game. This is how the Vikings have to play to win.
Absolutely.
They're 3-5. They're back in the hunt. They've equaled with the Lions, and at least you can see how the Vikings can win. I don't know how the Lions win. Without Golladay on the field, I don't know how the Lions win.
Without Stafford on the field either. We'll come on to that later. But Dalvin Cook is projected to have 1,700 yards by the end of the year. But he's only played 5 games.
Yeah.
So that's 1,700 yards over a 16-game season. So, if you break that down, that actually, he's on course, potentially, if he keeps going the way he is, to kind of challenge what Adrian Peterson did at the Vikings that season where he was MVP. I think, it's really rare that anyone other than a quarterback wins MVP. And if Russell Wilson carries on playing the way he's been playing, he's bound to win it. But if Dalvin Cook does go on to kind of break that 2,000-yard mark, you've got to consider him as an MVP. He's certainly MVP for many people's fantasy teams at the moment.
On course as well for the running back touchdown record.
Yes, he is.
Yep.
He so far this season he has 12 touchdowns. He's projected to have 24.
And the record is 22.
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah.
So look, he's brilliant. They're slowly getting into the Mike Zimmer wet dream zone of running the ball on every play. There's a
it's back to 1970s, isn't it?
But
right.
Or the NFC Championship.
I have no problem with that. If that's how your team is modelled to win and you win, that's fine.
Yeah.
Go and do it for 3 or 4 straight games and I'll start believing in you. Until you do that, you're still just that team I want to see win because you've got Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think that the opposition they've been playing has been, they played the Packers last week, didn't they?
Talk to me about how the Lions progress with any security, because Matt Stafford got injured in this one. Chase Daniel came in 8 of 13, 94 yards, touchdown and a pick. He looked competent backup, which is what he has been through his whole career, which is why he's had 8 or 9 years in the league. But they're not going to win any games with Chase Daniel starting, I don't think, or certainly not because of him. Stafford hasn't had a vintage Stafford year, but he still makes them viable. He was making Amendola look like a world beater for a while. He had 10 yards per reception, I think, or 11 yards of reception. Amendola.
Mm-hmm.
Marvin Jones thrives with Matt Stafford when they get near the end zone.
Yeah.
Hockenson looked really good. They were just about filling in the Golladay gap, and it is a big gap. And then as soon as you take Stafford out, the arm isn't there to pick on these talented receivers. So I don't know. I'm not sold on the running game at all. It's just 2 bits and pieces. It's Kerryon Johnson. Where's he been? 4 carries, 29 yards is fine, but how is he still not getting more touches? Why is he getting outpaced by Adrian Peterson by double the number of carries for the same number of yards? What is the point?
I completely agree. I think there's they're always chasing the game, so that always puts it more into the passing game than the running game. I think they've got. I feel like with the stable of running backs they've got in Detroit in Kerryon Johnson, Peterson, and DeAndre Swift, they can almost do what Minnesota do in terms of leaning so much on the running game. They just have to do it by committee, and it doesn't always have to be runs. I think DeAndre Swift. He had an unfortunate drop week 1, so I think everyone just remembers that. But he is a good pass catching back. He will do well. And he had 3 catches for 33 yards at the weekend. He's had others as well. He'll get touchdowns that way. So I think there's a talent there to be a good running team. If Stafford's fit, there's talent there to be a good passing team. I just feel like the Lions are one of these teams where you never get everything all working at the same time. It's either the passing game's working, or the defense is working, or the running game's working, or the special teams are working. It seems like none of those things all work at the same time. It's like this has worked this week, but this hasn't. And I don't know if that's coaching or if that's like talent or scheme. I don't know. I mean, I want to see Patricia have more time in Detroit. Out of all of Belichick's kind of coaching disciples, I think he's probably one of the ones that probably had them. I think has got the best chance of succeeding, aside from Brian Flores now. And I want him to do well, but like Matt Nagy, it's becoming hard to defend him anymore because I just don't feel they're just not getting the results.
Yeah, I agree. We've had this conversation. You had the conversation with Nat Coombs earlier in the season. You've got to give him time. That's fine. They gave up a winning coach in order to get Matt Patricia. So I think he's going to be there and he's going to get time. You can't tell me from 1 week to the next that you have any idea what the Lions are going to do. Because
this is the problem.
They don't know.
Yeah, they don't know. And this is what I'm saying. Like one facet of the game, it isn't the thing they lean on. Like we talk about the Bears. Okay, the Bears are doing badly at the moment. They've still got a great defense. So you can confidently say the Bears are going to play well on defense every week. You can confidently say that the Packers passing game is going to be good every week. You can say that the Vikings running game is going to be good every week. They're the NFC North teams. You can't look at the Detroits every week and go, good running game, need to defend against that. It's like, yeah, all right, running game if it's clicking. All right, passing game if it's clicking. The defense, yeah, they've got some playmakers there. They can do something if it's clicking. You look at it and you go, I don't know what they're doing. I struggle.
And that's all being coached by Matt Patricia.
The identity throughout, like the Stafford, big Stafford fan, but it's a bunch of running back twos of him. It's a bunch of wide receiver threes. It's the identity of the team seems to be basically of it. I think on the offense is a case of if Stafford ain't doing it, we just ain't doing it. It's sad because I think Stafford's one of the players you sort of think deserves more than what he's got, and what he's whether it's I guess the GM has failed to build a team around him. Like he's not had a consistent.
They've wasted Matt Stafford as a player.
Yeah.
There's no two ways around it. They really have. He's coming towards the downhill of his career, which is fine.
Still not that old.
No, but when has he ever had a?
He's only 32.
Like he's getting injured a lot more though.
Yeah,
the injuries are not racking up, and that I don't think. I just don't think you see him as a. He's not going to get you 16 games a season anymore.
I posed this question in our WhatsApp group at the weekend. It's like, in their prime, Matt Stafford or Phillip Rivers? Because they're both good quarterbacks. And we argue about Phillip Rivers being on the edge of the Hall of Fame. No one's ever said Matt Stafford Hall of Fame, and I don't think he will go there based on kind of where it currently is. But on his day, Matt Stafford is one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
And on his day, I'd probably take Stafford over Phillip Rivers.
I think the biggest problem Matt Stafford had in his career is A, he got lumbered with the Lions. B, more importantly, Calvin Johnson retired early.
Yeah.
Calvin Johnson had stayed, then this team would have marched into the playoffs more often than not. I really, really believe that. But you take away that other talented player from the team, and he's played, like John said, with a bunch of number threes, really, a wide receiver. They've had such inconsistency at running back, and they got rid of a winning head coach, which I never liked in the first place, but at least they were making the playoffs. They went 9-7, like they were winning. He's been saddled with a poor team, and Calvin Johnson retiring has blown any chance Matt Stafford had of getting into the Hall of Fame. Because look at what Phillip Rivers has worked with. The relationship with Antonio Gates alone was worth 4 wins a season.
Easily, yeah.
At its peak. And it was the same with the Lions. So, just saying. Bit disappointed we didn't get to see David Blau. I will say that before we move on from the Lions. I was really hoping David Blau was getting a run out this week, but no, sadly not.
Yeah, well, we'll take a break and we'll come back with both the best team in the NFL probably and a load of the worst. Okay, welcome back to part 2 of the podcast. And we're going to go straight into Cowboys 19, Steelers 24, in what was just a fun thing to watch, even if quality was quite low.
Right, Mike Tomlin can't coach a team up. His teams play down. Mike Tomlin is a great head coach. They win all the time. But he cannot coach a team to play consistently good football against bad teams. And that is why they haven't won more Super Bowls.
That's fair. this must have been frustrating for pretty much every fantasy football player or manager in the world, because you can guarantee that at least 50 to 60% of fantasy football players have got a Steeler on their team, be it James Conner, Ben Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, James Washington, Eric Ebron, Deontay Johnson. And it was so frustrating watching them all not really do that much against a team. It's like, great, line these guys up in my team and they are going to feast against this defense because it is terrible. And for once, the defense showed up, and actually the offense wasn't terrible. I think we have to give kudos to Garrett Gilbert. He didn't look as bad as Ben DiNucci. And the running game in Dallas is just terrible. Ezekiel Elliott looks like, I don't know what he looked. He doesn't look like Ezekiel Elliott that I used to know. 2.8 yards per carry. I know the offensive line isn't great, and I know we've mentioned that in previous examples when we talk about David Montgomery. But Zeke Elliott is twice the player David Montgomery is. He shouldn't have to lean on an offensive line for him to be good. He should just be good. He's been paid as a star running back. He should be turning up yards. Yeah, he's given up on the season.
He's checked out already. He's not remotely bothered. He knows they're not going anywhere this season. Again, he's another one that a little bit now. All right, they're in a terrible division, so technically they're still in the playoff hunt. But at some point soon, when they're not, wrap him in cotton wool, send him off for the season. Why risk it? Why put more miles on the clock when you can't?
Especially when Tony Pollard at the moment isn't a downgrade.
Look, I think you're right. I think a lot of people started to Steelers players and benched all their Cowboys players and got caught out completely. Garrett Gilbert has outplayed Andy Dalton and Ben DiNucci, not just Ben DiNucci, Andy Dalton as well.
Yeah,
because
that's fair.
He's a bit mobile and willing to take a risk. So, they're saying if Dalton's fit next week, he's coming straight back in. I do wonder if that's a mistake because he can't move behind that porous O-line.
Yeah,
Well, at least Gilbert could move.
Yeah, and they got the Cowboys are a bye next week. So, but I thought, Garrett Gilbert, 6th round pick, he didn't look like a 6th round pick. He looked like a decent, solid quarterback. He's never going to be spectacular. But I think you're right. Dalton's never has been, or never going to be spectacular.
He was the best quarterback in the AAF. Now I know that's, I get it. Like, I understand comparison is not everything, but
yeah.
It's not like he's an inexperienced nobody. He's played games, he's led teams. And so at least you're handing the reins to someone who's got a lot to prove and something to back it up with. And it looked like it. So it's a highlight. They've had 4 players throw consecutive touchdowns for them now this season. That's insane. It just 2001 was the last time that happened. And it was the Cowboys. So,
well, there we go.
I don't know. I don't know. I love the Steelers this season. I don't know why they can't win things. This should have been a 50-point win. I cannot. Do you know what? The only thing good that you can say about the Steelers is Ben Roethlisberger didn't get crippled because he got hit and it hurt, and he came back and immediately threw a touchdown. And I think that's good because I think in the past Ben would have limped off and stayed off.
I don't know. I think the thing about Ben is, he's always playing injured, because he's a big bloke and he just gets hit. He gets hit, and when he gets hit, it generally, the bigger they are, the bigger they fall.
Mm. Yeah, that famous.
And but they the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Even sorry, but
that's throwing you a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, but I do worry that if they do find that Ben can't play for a week, that is the week they will lose.
Because
without
Mason
him,
Rudolph is the backup, 2 of 3 for 3 yards. I don't think it's a problem. I think Ben will be fine. Do you know Roethlisberger? The only player ever to have 17 consecutive seasons of .500 or more, because he now cannot finish under 500 this season.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the first time in franchise history as well. They've gone 8-0 to start a season. Like, given how good the Steelers have been in past years, like they're one of these dynasties. One of these franchises that have dynasty type periods in their history. Like, that's quite amazing.
You know, Mike Tomlin as well has only lost once to Mike McCarthy.
Oh, really?
In the Super Bowl.
Super.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he'd probably trade the other 4 victories, but Minka Fitzpatrick continues to be brilliant. The Steelers' defense is really, really good. The coaching concerns me in these underplayed games. But when they come up against the Chiefs, whoever you want to throw in there, the good teams, the Patriots of the past, whatever, they play up, and that's key.
Yeah.
It's strange with I mentioned it before. Look at Fitzpatrick. His stats for everything but interceptions are awful.
Yeah.
His PFF ranking is abysmal, and I think it's obviously if you've got a defense that great, you can have this sort of hybrid player whose job is just to basically do nothing else seemingly but make crucial picks. It's a strange dynamic they've got there, that they're so good they don't need him for anything really other than these huge game-changing plays, which he's doing. But yeah, it's to go but if you to go by stats, which a lot of people will do, you go, actually, Fitzpatrick is just quite a flash player. And yeah, it's just strange, but yeah, the Steelers' defense is brilliant. The offense, Ben makes them viable, but all the time you're just like, it's really fucking boring. it's not. They're not fun to like. At least the Seahawks are fun. They're gonna spank 30 points to the other team anyway. But yeah, the Steelers are just not very dynamic offensively at the moment, and I think this is probably the best chance they'll ever have.
Yeah,
and it's annoying.
I think you're right there. I think given what the start of the season they've had, and given the talent on both sides of the ball, you wouldn't be surprised to see the Steelers in the Super Bowl, or at least in the AFC Championship game. But there's some good AFC teams at the moment. So it's whether they can play up, and they can, but can they play really up to that level and beat kind of the Chiefs in the AFC Championship? Bad news for the Dallas defense is that Trayvon Diggs, their cornerback, I think he's fractured a bone in his foot, and he's going to be out for 4 to 5 weeks minimum. So you might want to say his season's probably over, and that's not good news because the Dallas defense, apart from this game, has been woeful for the whole season. They can ill afford to lose their first round pick.
Yeah. Well, let's come to some fun games. Chargers 26, Raiders 31. Right down to the last play.
Oh God!
And where the young tight end had basically the defensive player made a play. It wasn't, I think it was called a touchdown, wasn't it? And then it was taken away. So the Chargers went off celebrating, and then you could see it on their faces. I think it was shown must have been shown on the screen, and they knew, and I was gutted for them.
This I do know, but it's really hard to fathom how the Chargers are 2-6 because they're one of the most entertaining teams to watch. I think they've got. We'll come on to talk about a couple of the other rookie quarterbacks in the league, but between Herbert, Tua, and Joe Burrows, all three of those quarterbacks I think have started their careers in the NFL really well. Herbert particularly so, who I think is just playing out of his skin at the moment. Like, if you're a Chargers fan, forget about the 2-6 of this season. If you're just thinking about the next 5 to 10 years with Justin Herbert as your quarterback, you are genuinely excited because he is playing brilliantly. He's fun to watch. He's good. both passing and running the ball as well. I think you're just generally really excited. But once again, it's okay. They didn't throw away a lead, but you kind of just knew that when it got down to that play that something Chargerish would happen. And that was the ultimate Chargery thing to happen. I mean, we talked about the coaching last week, and I think there was a point in this game right at the end where they had a timeout in the last drive, and they didn't use it, and that probably cost them between 20 and 30 seconds. And that means
5 seconds.
Yeah, and that means you're rushing your play. Then you've got one chance. You could have had at least another one, maybe another 2 plays of it.
Said last week though, Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn is part of the problem. Now, before we crush him again, but he is part of the problem, I will say this. You can be as happy as you like with Justin Herbert as a Chargers fan, but you're still going to be insignificant for the next 10 years because you support the Chargers, and they just aren't a winning franchise. They've got double-digit win seasons in 60 years of existence.
I know, but they've got the opportunity, and I think
it doesn't matter.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying earlier. Like if I'm a Chargers fan, at least I'm looking at quarterback going, he could win us the game. As a 49er fan, I'm looking at Garoppolo going, oh God, he's going to lose us the game. Oh, we're never going to do this. I'm excited to watch the
10 quarterback for the next 10 or 12 years, but I don't think it matters. Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when all the Colts fans got excited because they had Andrew Luck, and they promptly went and played in one championship game and did very little else, and then
I think that's unfair. He had an injury and then he retired pretty quickly after that. So I get where you're coming from. I do.
Saying it could be misplaced optimism for a team.
But you could say the same about the Chiefs.
Yeah, but they've already won it. They've already won it.
But before they won it, you could say exactly the same about the Chiefs, and that they've not been to the Super Bowl for 30, 40 years. They're not a winning franchise. And suddenly they just get the right mix, and it's coach, it's scheme, it's quarterback, it's the right players at the right time. You get lightning in a bottle, and you suddenly turn a franchise which hasn't traditionally won much, if anything, and suddenly you become a winning franchise. And I think the Chargers aren't a million miles off of that. Like,
cut this clip here, John, because I want to play this back to Jim next year when the Chargers are 2-6 at the same time of the season next year.
But you've got to admit though, Justin Herbert's a good quarterback. And
Justin Herbert's brilliant.
They've got good wide receivers. They've got a good defense. They just maybe need to tweak on the offensive line, and they need to replace the coach.
They do. Do you know what their point differential is this season in their 2-6 year?
Can't be much, no.
They are minus 11. That is all. 11 points, and they've lost 6 games.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. And it's all down to coaching. It's just...
Yeah.
But if you're going to make this decision, Anthony Lynn's in his 4th year. If you're going to make this decision, you make it now. You don't wait another year and wait it out. Well, you've got to make it, but it's got to be the right choice, because otherwise you probably give the next guy 2 seasons. You might have wasted that. Then you waste rookie contract.
Yep.
You can so quickly run away. And I have zero faith in the Chargers' backroom staff to get that appointment right.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything you've just said. I completely agree from a franchise point of view, from a franchise management point of view, the Chargers aren't the best, but they've got a chance. And I think that's as a fan, that's what you kind of cling to. It's like, okay, this year, all right, we're not going to the playoffs this year. But there's a sign that this franchise is going somewhere. And you look at some of the other franchises elsewhere. You look at the Browns for years and years and years, and I guess you now throw the Jets in there. You can throw the Washington football team in there as well. Even the Jags, to an extent, they had one good season. And you look at those teams. You look at those teams. And geez,
how long ago?
Here we go again. I know exactly. So. At least now you look at, as a Chargers fan, it's like we could, like, if we could just get a little bit more luck and maybe a different coach who's got a different scheme that seems to be able to manage games better. Because I think that's Anthony Lynn's biggest problem at the moment, is that he doesn't seem to be able to manage the game.
They definitely need Austin Eckler back. There's no consistency in that backfield at all. Everywhere you looked for fantasy help last week, it said, go and pick up Justin Jackson. The Raiders can't defend against the run. he gets injured on the third play of the game, and
Yeah.
then they just don't know what to do in the backfield. They've got no idea. Herbert's brilliant. We know this. They get Eckler back. I think that makes a 3 or 4 win difference with him in the team.
Potentially, yeah.
But it's like you say, this season's over for them. It's not about this year. Can we talk about the Raiders though?
Okay.
And again, I know it's going to come up in the power rankings, but they're actually quite good. Like, the defense gives up a lot of yards, but they score a lot of touchdowns. They're actually quite good.
I think Derek Carr's having a good season. He's quietly having a good season. He's not putting stellar stats on the board. His stats this week are nothing to shout right home about, but he's playing relatively well. And
they're averaging 2 touchdown passes a week.
Yeah.
They're throwing 2 interceptions all season.
They're 5-3, and I looked at that a couple of times and gone, hang on a second, sorry, what? They're 5-3. And it's like, this isn't, again, I still look at their defense and go, that's a terrible defense, but they're playing better than the sum of their parts on defense. I'll give them that. And they're getting results, and that's the most important thing, isn't it? You can have brilliant, look at the Chargers. You've got loads of great players on that team. They're not getting results. You look at the Raiders, they've got some good players on that team, but they've got a lot of average players, but they're getting the results. And again, it comes down to coaching. John Gruden is now building something there. He's had a couple of years and it's not gone brilliantly. Now it seems to be kind of building, and they seem to be getting some momentum. So maybe they need maybe another year or two, and maybe they'll be much better than they are. But I think that they're on the right road. I think again, as a fan, you're looking at it and going, "All right, I'm starting to believe now. I can get on board with this. We're getting results, and that's all that matters, isn't it?"
Yeah,
it is.
No, if you look at their receivers, they're getting a lot out of quite little. Yeah,
they're getting a lot out of Nelson Aguilar.
Jesus, when did the guy learn to catch?
I don't know, but he's got 5. He's leading the team in touchdowns. It's extreme. He had a year a couple of seasons ago, didn't he? At the Eagles. Was it 18? It was either 2018 or 2017 where he suddenly broke out, and you were like,
"It was a Super Bowl, yeah."
It was 2017. He had 8 touchdown catches. He was amazing for like half the season, and then he went really quiet again over the following 2 years. This is excellent. His average yards per catch is like phenomenal. He's like 20 yards a catch. So, if you can get good things out of fringe players, I think that speaks to the opposite to what Anthony Lynn is getting, which is not getting the most out of good players. John Gruden's getting the most out of fringe players.
Yeah.
Working for them. Derek Carr is never going to be Justin Herbert, but at the moment, he's the one with the record.
Yeah.
He's not outperforming him statistically, but the combination of Carr and Gruden has a winning record.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to another tight game. Cardinals 31, Dolphins 34, and another rookie quarterback. And he gets another win.
That was second. Unbeaten.
Much more productive than his first game, where he didn't have. They could have played a broom and pretty much got the same result. And I think the a lot of people were saying, Tua looked really, really good and whatever. Other people were saying, he was fine. I thought there were parts which were really, really fun to watch. On the other side, I could watch Kyler Murray all day.
Yeah.
Honestly, my favourite player of the year, quite at the moment. I could watch him. It's just so great to watch. Like mind you, the human joystick. It's just so much fun to watch.
I think this was definitely probably his best career game, both in stats but also in entertainment. 106 yards on the ground, but also he had 21 completions from 26, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 283 yards. Both these quarterbacks, I think, played brilliantly. It was a fun game to watch. This one, I think. Again, I kind of come back. If you're the Dolphins fan, you're watching that. You're probably overhyping it, and there's a lot of over expectations. So just temper those expectations a little bit. He had a good game, And yes, you should be excited, but let's not go over the top just yet.
I was the only one last week who said, I want to see more out of Tua. Everyone was ready to go. And I'm the same this week. I don't see what there is to cheer about. The Cardinals are giving up 350 yards a week to opposing teams. Let him play against a decent defense. I still don't think that he's ready. Because tell me what the best thing about Tua Tagovailoa is. What is his standout trait?
His decision making. I mean, if you look at how he used to play at Alabama, you're right. He's not a Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson. He's not a running quarterback. He can run, but he hasn't got that speed. He hasn't got a big arm like a Josh Allen or a Justin Herbert. Right? That's not what he's about. His best comparison is probably Drew Brees. In that, he can throw a very accurate ball. His decision making is brilliant. It was really good at college level, which is why Alabama, it's not why Alabama done well. Alabama done well because they're Alabama, but it certainly helped. And I think that's what you're going to get with him at the Dolphins. And I think when you pair that type of quarterback with a really good defense, which I think the Dolphins are starting to really build something on defense under Brian Flores. If you've got a quarterback who's not turning the ball over, it's almost like Alex Smith-esque, right? When he was at the 49ers, you've got a good defense, you've got a quarterback who's not turning the ball over, and you've got some good players on offense. And I think they need to build that, especially on the running game, which is just terrible. You're building a good team there, and I think. The Dolphins are looking at it going, I think this is part of the reason. Part of the reason they put Tua in is to see what they've got before the draft next year and to see if they need to do an Arizona and draft a different quarterback. But also part of it is, hang on a sec, we've got a chance to be in the playoffs here. Like, can we, if he takes us that far, can he compete at that level? And he's getting some good experience. And maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick would be doing exactly the same, but he's not the future. And I think if you're the Dolphins and you've got not only 2 first-round picks this year, but you've got a couple of second-round picks and high second-round picks as well from the Texans, from the awful trade last year. You're looking at it going, we need to know what we've got with Tua. Like, is he the future or is he not the future? Based on this game, you'd say he's the future. But you're right, he's got to come up against some better defenses.
The reason I asked you what his best trait was is because I think you and I think in a fairly similar way. So I agree with you. It's the decision making and the associated completion rate, the accuracy that goes with it. And that isn't something that you necessarily transfer from college to the pro game. Matt Leinart stands out as somebody who completed a lot of passes in college and was terrible. And I don't think we should be getting overexcited about Tua yet. It's going to be into next season sometime before you see the best of him, because the game is still really quick at this level for him.
Yeah.
So when he plays good defenses, and the Bills next week is not a good defense, then they've got the Seahawks, not a good defense, then they've got the Patriots, not a good defense, the Rams are so-so, the Giants are so-so, the Eagles are so-so. They've got nothing decent to face. That is why I think it's more the case they've brought him in, because he's going to get time to play against bad defenses and everything can slow down a bit for you. Come next season, if they finish higher up the division, they get a harder schedule, it'll be better adjusted for him. I don't think they care, but I don't think they're bothered about making the playoffs this year. It's about giving him time, because talent like that requires in-game experience. It's not like Josh Allen, who, if he's suddenly in trouble, just heaves it 50 yards down the field. He's not going to. So if you look at their schedule, the defenses are so bad.
Yeah, I think the best defense they're going to play is the Chiefs, and we've already mentioned that defense as being not brilliantly.
The Bills, maybe.
They play the Chiefs.
They've got to play
this
the
week.
Chiefs,
This week they come up against the Chargers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Chargers, Broncos, Jets.
Chargers, Broncos, Jets. I think Pats, Chiefs.
Apologies.
Bills.
Yes, I was looking at the wrong schedule. I do apologise. Yeah, okay. So,
they could be
they've
quite
got no
legitimately
one tip top to play against.
No.
And that's fine. So that's fine, but I cannot get excited because he's played well against the Cardinals.
I think you can get excited, like I say, you can get excited about the fact that he didn't completely bomb, and he did play well. 20 from 28, good. 248 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. You can also get excited that okay, I'm saying that he's not a rushing quarterback, but he did rush and he didn't get injured. And when you've got his injury pass, as a fan, I'm looking at that and going, oh my God, don't run, slide, and there were a couple of dodgy slides on some of those runs as well. And he's come out of it and he's fully fit. I think that's a big relief for Dolphins fans.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. Okay. Toilet time.
You've called it the speed round.
Speed round. Jets 27, Patriots 30. Was it 14 points in the or something like that,
We
in
were
the fourth
10
quarter?
points down half. Look, we beat the worst team in football by some margin on a last-second field goal. That pretty much sums up where the Patriots are. The defence is weak as I've ever seen for the New England Patriots. Cam Newton couldn't throw a touchdown if you gave him 50 attempts and no defenders in the red zone. All that's keeping this going is Bill Belichick is still one of the best coaches and he's getting something out of nothing. It's rebuild. They've got cap space next. This year is irrelevant. That's it.
This is one of those games where if you look at the box score and you just look at the Patriots side of it and you see like Cam Newton, 27-35, 224 yards, decent, no interceptions. Damian Harris, 71 yards or 14 carries, 5.1 yards carry, decent. Jacoby Myers, okay, never heard of him, 12 receptions, 169 yards, decent. And it's like, oh, okay, must be a good team, a good game. Everyone's played pretty well. Not many. I don't think there were any turnovers, were there? One fumble, but it was recovered. But then you're right, Griff. You look at it and it's like, oh, right, fuck, you're playing the Jets, and it was a last-minute kick to win the game, and you can see the 27 points. It's like, oh, that's just shit.
That's all you need to know. The only thing we learned from this game is Joe Flacco can still pass the ball against bad defenses. Because he played really well, but against a team that doesn't rush the passer, hadn't got its number one cornerback on the field. Joe Flacco is probably going to be a backup for a few more years in the league based on this performance. Yeah. That's all we learned. You can take nothing from this. We know Gase is keeping his job. It's irrelevant. Move on. That's it.
Flacco did overtake Montana for passing yards to prove he's a better quarterback.
Sorry, shut up. What did you just say?
I said Flacco's a better quarterback than Joe Montana.
Can I mute you?
What did he ever do?
What did he ever do?
Football team 20, Giants 23. Kyle Allen is out. It's not as bad as it was feared, and it did look.
Ankle. It looked grim.
Yeah, it looked like one of those Alex Smith type breaks, doesn't it?
It looked grim. Yeah. Do you know what? The Washington football team are one of the few teams that have got better by subtraction, because I actually think Alex Smith played really well. And he got picked off forcing to try and take the win at the end. But other than that, he looks like their best quarterback. So good.
By some distance, yeah.
He makes McKissick a really good pass-catching running back. Terry McLaurin will only benefit from an accurate quarterback. And the only problem that most of us have is you don't want to watch it. Because you sit there thinking, okay, I used to watch Alex Smith run for 15 yards a play. And now I know he can't go forwards anymore. He looks skittish, waiting for the snap. But once he's got the snap and the ball is in his hands, he just looks like Alex Smith. I think he'll be fine. They're going to lose a lot of games regardless, but it got better by subtraction. And do you know what? Ron Rivera's got exactly what he wanted. He wanted to play Alex Smith. He's got him there by default. Dwayne Haskins couldn't be out of there quicker. And
they were talking about trading him, weren't they?
They're probably going to be positioned to draft a quarterback if they want to.
I think they will.
I think they will if they can get the right one. If not, you've probably got another year of Alex Smith, who's, 35, 36, and it is still absolute shoo-in for comeback player of the year. He doesn't have to win any games. No. He just has to not die.
All he had to do was take the field.
Exactly. He could have come on and taken a knee. And I'd have still cried. Just wincing doing so. On the other side, I would say Chase Young is a complete stud.
Animal.
I watched one point. The Giants had 3 men on him, and he still pressured Jones. He is an animal. If they can continue building this team, defensively, the defensive line is sorted.
Last year, I used to really love just watching Nick Bosa on the defensive line for the 49ers. And that I literally when we were playing on defense, I'd literally just watch that one player and see what. And he used to destroy offensive tackles. Chase Young, another Ohio State pass rusher, following on from Nick Bosa. Many people thought, Chase Young was actually better than Nick Bosa. I think he might be. I'm very biased, obviously, but Chase Young is going to be a star of this league.
John, we should point out your Giants actually won 23-20, and you go to 2-7 on the season. Daniel Jones is 4-0 against the football team in his career.
He's one
great.
Of the,
I'm really pleased for you.
One of the first in everyone else.
He still had 2 fumbles.
He had 2 fumbles.
Lose the ball.
Picks this week. Do you know what the problem might be for you is that you might not be in place to draft a replacement.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's
could be an issue.
Slipping away.
Can we talk about the play that summed up the NFC East? I can't remember who was it. Was it Washington that fumbled the ball?
Yeah,
and probably about 7 Giant players and 7 Washington players all tried to get it and just couldn't. It was hilarious. If you've not seen it, go. Oh no, go and watch it. It summed up the NFC East.
If the Yakety Sax was playing over it, it's the only way you can sum it up. It was just incredible to watch.
I'll tell you what, John, as well, Evan Ingram scored a touchdown for the first time in 14 games. Can we find the position where Evan Ingram is either a good player or not? Because he is massively rated for a guy that's supposed to be really good. You've said you think you'll benefit from moving on. But if he's going to play like this, that's fine. He's really good. But he goes missing for like 7 or 8 games at a time.
That's
painful.
it. Yeah. No, let's judge him at the end of the season now because we can't trade him. But I think it probably is in everyone's benefit for him to move on.
Speaking of moving on,
Jaguars 25, Texans 27, and
forgotten
I think that's about it. Jake Luton was fun.
Jake Luton basically turned up and said, "I might only get 1 game, so I'm going to sling it." And do you know what? If I was the Jags, I'd be sticking with him because it might be the same boost they got out of Minshew last season, and one of these guys is on the roster next year.
Yeah. And what we said about Tua is like you've got to see what you've got going into the draft. I think the Jags know what they've got in Gardner Minshew. I think looking at that game, you've got to look at Jake. Yeah, you've got to look at Jake Luton and go, all right, he had a pretty decent team. The Texans aren't amazing. Let's roll with him and just see what we've got, just in case there is something there and we don't need to pick up a quarterback or we can adjust it. Knowing the Jags, that's exactly what they'll do. They'll roll with Jake Luton. He'll play all right. They'll then decide that, okay, we don't need one of these brilliant quarterbacks. We're going to stick with Jake Luton, and next season he'll be terrible.
Well, this is where I was going with saying to John that one of the best quarterbacks might not be there because the Jags still only 1-7.
Yeah.
But how Jags would it be to win their last 3 games of the season and put themselves out to even have the chance? DJ Chark, though, did he have like 176 yards or something stupid?
146 yards, not quite. But yards. Decent.
Where I was going with that was that's a rapport. There's something there. So if I were the Jags, I'd be saying, okay, Jake Luton's in for the rest of the season. Let's see what we've got. If we're out of position to draft a quarterback, maybe this is the guy just based on he's probably better than Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
Maybe. You've already got a franchise running back in James Robinson. You've already got a franchise receiver in DJ Chark. You're missing the key piece, but there's no point putting Minshew back in. It's a bit like the Trubisky thing with the Bears.
Yeah.
And there's just no point. Move on.
Completely agree. Deshaun Watson had a really good game. Sneakily good. I had him on fantasy, so I noticed it. But, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, but also he was running the ball as well. 10 carries, 50 yards. He's not really been doing that much this year.
They didn't have a choice, did they? Because David Johnson left the game with a concussion after about 3 minutes and just, what a dude.
Why are you so bitter about that, Mike?
Stepped up, 41 yards, touchdown. That's the best we've seen out of Duke Johnson all season. and he'll be high up on the waiver ads for fantasy.
I would have thought
because
so.
the talk is David Johnson won't play. Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks both passed 80 yards receiving and got a touchdown each. Like the Texans are fine, but how often are they going to be in games and lose them as opposed to play terrible teams like the Jags and win them? They're still only 2-6. I think each week the Texans could win, but most of the time they won't. Some of that is coaching. Some of that is,
they're going to go for a reset, aren't they? I think you can't read anything into this. You can't read anything into this Texans team because next year it could be all different.
Yeah, the mentality isn't there. Like, I don't know. I don't even think JJ Watt looks like JJ Watt now. It's almost like he's sort of decided I might as well be fit for next year. I'm just not. I'm not sold that look winning.
He got his 100th sack, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, the guy's great, but it looks like he's got 30% he could still give. And why would you? It's not like we were saying earlier. What with Zeke? Why would you sell out for a team you know isn't going anywhere when you've got an injury?
We'll talk about teams going nowhere. Broncos 27, Falcons 34.
I've got nothing to say about this game.
I will say, there was a point in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
I thought the Falcons were going to Falcons it.
Yeah,
because they were so far ahead, and then suddenly Broncos scored 2 touchdowns, back within a score, and then the Broncos went and fucked it up. But it was there. Yeah. Anyway,
I'll tell you what I took from this game. I think the Broncos will get away with Drew Lock under centre if they decide to invest as him as the starter and push on. I don't have a problem with that. 25 and 48. Asking him to throw 48 passes for a start, but you've got to keep pace with the Falcons' attack. 313 yards, 2 touchdowns. All right, like the Falcons' defense isn't brilliant, but he's been consistently good downfield.
Yeah,
he needs more experience for the decision-making side, but you've got rookies all over the field on this Broncos team. Their defense is in pieces. I think he's doing as good a job as most people would do on this team.
I think they've got a lot of weapons on the field, and you're right. They're all quite young. It's Jerry Jeudy. I think he had a great game. I think he's going to be a star in this league. Noah Fant, it's his second year. He had an on and off first year, but I think this year he's really progressed into looking like a good tight end. And then you've got other players like Tim Patrick has come out of nowhere seemingly, and he's a decent option. He seems to have a good rapport with Drew Lock, and then even like KJ Hamler and Deshaun Hamilton, they're good 2 and 3 and 4 level receivers. So once you get the defense, once you get Von Miller back, you can't underestimate how big a loss that is. Once you get Von Miller back, I think this team could be sneaky good. I still like the Broncos. I think they're only 3 and 5, but they're one of those teams that could cause trouble to pretty much any team they're playing against on their day.
Yeah.
The other 3 and 5 team we were talking about earlier, the Vikings, we were saying they can move forward. They're still in the hunt.
Yeah.
Like, I would, if those two were facing off tomorrow, I'm not sure that the Vikings would necessarily plough the Broncos. All right, you've got Dalvin Cook. That's your advantage. But who else on that Vikings team are you trusting to pull their weight? No.
I think the wide receiver, Jefferson.
If you get Jefferson in some space, but then it's also it's relying on Cousins to find him.
Speaking of wide receivers, though, it was the Olamide Zacchaeus game. He turns up once a season, 103 yards, touchdown. He just turns up once a year with his old man name, and
everyone will pick him up in fantasy next week, and then he'll be shit again. The old Bobby Anderson effect, but not so much this year.
But anyway, game's done. Should we go to power rankings?
Yeah, I'm curious about who's
Gary,
got what where.
Gary's not here. He's sat at home on the injured reserve, but he sent his in. Paul doesn't do power rankings, so probably because he'd probably picked Denver as number 1 and
just to piss everyone off.
Just to piss everyone off. Yeah. But Griff's already seen these.
I have.
So, Jim, who do you think number 1?
Well, I put the Chiefs at number 1, so I think they should be number 1.
And
You
number
all
2,
put the Chiefs at 1 except me.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Oh, of course you didn't.
Steelers. Yeah. I just thought, if it was a game, I think that the superior offense of the Chiefs would just get them. Basically, in the playoffs, I think the Chiefs would win.
I'll just point out that the Chiefs lost to the Raiders. So if you're telling me the Steelers can't beat the Chiefs, I'm telling you're wrong.
I think the Steelers can beat the Chiefs, but I think, I look at power rankings and I always go through it at the end and go, right, can number 1 beat number 2? Can number 2 beat number 3? Can number 4? And that's how I look at it. I think, yes, the Steelers can beat the Chiefs. I won't deny that. But I think, if you're playing the game 10 times, I think the Chiefs would win most of those games.
I disagree. I think it's 50-50 at best, and
I don't think it's
undefeated.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a big difference. I think the Chiefs win it 6 times, and the Steelers win it 4 times, and those are undoubtedly the top 2. But I'm just going to give the edge to the Chiefs.
Fair enough.
Yeah. After that, 3 of us had the Packers at 3.
Really?
Some bitter old man put them at number 6.
Really? You went for the Packers at 3?
Yeah.
Huh. You know what, though? I was more surprised by the Ravens at 4. I didn't get this at all. They've been found out this year. I know they've got a good record, but you know how to stop them now.
Yeah. I do agree
6.
with that. I had them at 6. Griff had them at 9.
I had them at 9's very low. I had them at 3. And I think you're right, Griff. I think they are getting found out a little bit. I think the defense is criminally underrated at the moment, and I think they'll begin to lean more on the defense than they will the offense.
Who do you reckon comes out of Tampa and New Orleans?
Tampa.
Just because.
How is this a thing? Have you not watched these 2 games between these 2 teams? And Mr. I look and see who could beat who.
Yeah. Well, and the Raiders beat the Chiefs, but you didn't put the Raiders at number 1, did you?
Well, the thing is, they are the Tampa are ahead of New Orleans because you put Tampa at 4 and New Orleans at 8. Everyone else put them next to each other, so that is the difference. I had them at 5 and 4, 5 and 4, 9 and 8, and then 4 and 8. Everyone else had New Orleans ahead of Tampa, apart from yourself. So you are the difference maker.
That's what I like to be.
But thanks.
Then it's just behind them are the Bills, the Hawks, Titans. Everyone was pretty unanimous on the Colts, Cardinals, and Rams. And
there wasn't one unanimous team, though.
There were the Browns.
The Browns at 14 overall?
Yeah, I'm not including the Jets because everyone had the Jets at 32. But didn't. Everyone had the Browns at 14.
Hang on, no, I'm sorry, I didn't have the Jets at 32.
You had them
I had them at 50. I had them at 52.
You did.
Sorry. Like they're just so bad. They're so bad. Like the year that the Browns went 0-16. They were in close games, and the Jets were in a close game last night, but they're just so bad. I can't put them at 32.
You know what the anomaly of this power rankings was? Is that we all had the Browns at 14, and because of that, they made it to number 13 overall.
Yeah.
That's where maths doesn't work for me. I don't understand how that could possibly be a thing.
Yeah, it's because Gary went really low on the Raiders, as he always does, which then forced them below. So, we were all, Raiders 11, 13, 15, and then Gary had them at 20 because he hates them. Okay, biggest differences in our estimations.
Oh, well, I noticed that a lot of you were much higher on the Patriots than I was.
Yeah, so Gary had them at 16th. Griff has them at
16th.
16th is high. 28th, I think, is low.
They're terrible.
They are bad, but again,
they just won by 3 points against number 52 overall, the Jets.
but still, going back to it, I bet if the Steelers paid the Jets, they'd beat them by 4 points.
Yeah, that's true.
They beat them
But
7-3.
we were playing our best. The Steelers would be playing their worst.
The Patriots, there's a 12-point differential between our picks. The next is the Panthers, who range from 13th to 23. Gary had them at 13. I had them at 23. I just don't know what to do with the Panthers. So
they're a tricky one, aren't they?
They're tricky. The biggest fallers, it's the Patriots. They're fallen down 10 positions since.
2-2 last time we did this, weren't they? So
yeah,
hardly
and
surprised.
I think they were just coming off that Seahawks game. It's like, okay, they lost to the Seahawks, but Cam Newton played really well. So I think that game was still fresh in the memory. I think that you go beyond that, and it's just like, yeah, it's been bad. Like
Who's the biggest climber? Is it the Cardinals?
The biggest climbers are you'll never guess. The Vikings and the Raiders. Oh no! Dolphins. Dolphins have climbed 8 positions.
Wow!
Since week 4,
surprise me.
Which doesn't surprise me.
I see. So the Jets and the Jags were in the last 2 places. The Giants haven't done enough to climb out of 30th either, which is a shame. And I didn't know what to do with the Cowboys. Really,
the Cowboys was tough.
The Cowboys have fallen in 11 places since, but of course they have lost Dak.
Yeah, of course.
That is the only difference. So they are the biggest fallers.
I was amazed that they were ahead of the Giants and the football team. Because
really,
I thought, I don't know. I just thought maybe they'd end up behind them, but you know,
there's a possibility.
I think I have the football team ahead of the Cowboys at least. Yeah.
My issue with the power rankings, I guess, is I always think there's 14 playoff positions. If you're going to be in a playoff position, you should be in the 14th position at least, which of course means that the Eagles should be there.
Sure.
And the Eagles are 18, 19, 24, 25, and they're going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
In fact, did you see ESPN did their percentage probability of being in the playoffs? And the Eagles are higher than the Steelers.
Wow. It's just based on divisions, isn't it? Yeah.
Because it's based on divisions. The Eagles, there's no chance of...
How did Gary have the Eagles at 18th overall? You've got them at 19, but 18th overall.
It's because they're going to be in the playoffs, so they have to sort of get.
No,
and
but
that's
what power rankings are for. He's got them ahead of teams like the Raiders.
He's got them ahead of the Raiders.
Yeah.
That's mental. That doesn't think. But yeah, like if you want to say, at the end of the season, when it comes to picking the draft picks, the Eagles will be in the top 14 places.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I mean, I think one of the difficult things I find on power is is the team going to beat the team below them or whatever it may be, but also like building in like momentum into this as well, because like the Vikings last 4 weeks have been much better than probably 16th. Like you probably put them up a few places, but like. I struggle with but you know their record is this, the momentum is that, and against another team, and where did the Bears end up? I know we've had a lot of conjecture about the Bears. I've got the Vikings above the Bears.
Bears were 19th.
Yeah. So I had them at 18. So
where did I put them? Because that still feels high, but then I didn't know
24.
Yeah. So I thought that was high for me.
So I think you've got that kind of, I guess, group of teams, probably from I'd say 13 through to 22, maybe 23. It's really hard to pick.
Yeah, basically from the Raiders, you'd imagine, who were 14th, down to probably sort of 25, 26. You've got the Falcons and the Broncos.
Anyone's game on a given day.
Yeah.
And that's why we love the league, which is fine.
What makes it good.
And as well, you know, you also have to take into account that we've had quite a few teams lose their head coach this year. And how do you count that?
Yeah.
How do you say that? Oh, the Falcons could, because who's it like? They're just sort of without direction. It's really hard.
Maybe I just don't think about this enough. I just look at them and think, if I was flipping a coin between these two teams, which one would I think is more likely to win? That's literally how I do it. I don't look at the rest of the stuff. I don't care whether they're going to make the playoffs by default. It's just whether or not, if you threw all the teams together, which ones would end up on top. It's a power ranking.
Yeah.
It's not a playoff ranking. You can't tell me the Eagles are better than 10 or 12 teams in this league just because they're guaranteed a playoff spot. It's not what power rankings are for. Same with the Patriots. I don't think there's any way we'd beat 10 teams in this league right now. They look dreadful. Shocking.
Do you know what, though? But you look at it, look at the teams around them. I still think you could beat an Eagles, because who knows which Eagle's going to turn up.
But you wouldn't pick them to beat the Vikings.
No.
But they're behind the Vikings.
Yeah, but not by far. That's what I'm saying. It's not much, is it?
No. But, the Lions, the Broncos, the Texans, the Cowboys, the football team, they're all behind them. They're all crap.
I'd still expect the Patriots to beat all those teams.
They've got enough to do it.
Again, it comes down to if you played it 10 times, I wouldn't expect the Patriots to win every single game. I'd expect there to be a mix, but I expect the Patriots to be on the right side of that.
And that's it, yeah. And that's it. Without Belichick, the Patriots would probably be 25th or something like that.
I think they'd be lower.
They have him.
They'd be last.
No, I still think the Jets would be worse.
But with the same record, anyway, let's go on to our locks. So,
God, I haven't even looked.
Gary has sent me his, and he's gone fully, controversial here. He has picked Dolphins over Chargers.
Crikey, he must get splinters off that fence.
He's going for the 5-3 Dolphins over the 2-6 Chargers. So he's really, really trying hard there.
Okay, well, I will go for. I'll go for something that I think maybe is a bit, more controversial. Then I will take the 2-6 Texans over the 5-3 Browns.
I like. Yeah, that's cool.
Do you know what? There are some tight games, and there are also a lot of games that you could make the argument with, that's an easy pick. I'm not going to take Steelers over Bengals. I'm not going to take Ravens over Patriots. Even Saints over 49ers, although that's a bit slightly closer. And I'm not going Packers over Jaguars, because again, that's an easy one.
Jim,
I am
with Colts and Titans. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I think that's a Titans win, but I'm going to go with Giants over Eagles.
Well, I was going to go with football team over Lions.
Oh, yeah, that's another juicy one, isn't it?
I don't think either of those are controversial picks. Nobody took the Panthers over the Bucks. That was going to be my other choice I was thinking about.
No, because I think the Bucks come back. I think the Bucks come back this week.
Yeah, I do as well. I think that's wounded ego.
I think as well. I think I'm not sure about the Titans and the Colts. I think, and as well, I can see the Rams beating the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Here's the other one. So Colts Titans, that's a big one in that division. Vikings Bears is a massive divisional game. That's a nice child's hair clip there, Jim. Probably
yeah, I know.
Not for neither yours nor mine's thinning hair.
I could put it in.
Vikings Bears, right?
I'll have it back, please.
To win this, right? So it's Dalvin Cook against the Bears defense. Okay?
Yeah, it's tough ones to call.
What do we think? Because if the Bears win this, you're suddenly saying, okay, they're right back in the playoff hunt again.
I am going to go with the Vikings because I think they're a better overall team. Because until the Bears show me something on offense, you just can't back them. You're right in that Dalvin Cook is not going to have as big a day as he had against Detroit, but I think he's still probably going to get close to 100 yards. Right, and Jefferson could still have a good game. It's one of those games where it could end up being like 14-10 or something like that, or 10-3. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I think Cardinals Bills is a really interesting one as well. Right, I think that could go either way.
Yeah.
I'll just because I didn't make a thing. I think the Vikings will beat the Bears. The Bears have a much better defense, but they'll be on the pitch for so much longer.
Yeah.
That I think
That's
Dalvin Cook will just knock away at them.
But then Derek Henry, he didn't do that well against that Bears defense. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The Bears defense is going to be on the field longer.
If it comes down to a passing game, because the defenses are holding the running games up, which, to be fair, is not a lot to stop David Montgomery. But if they stop Dalvin Cook from being Dalvin Cook, are you really telling me that Kirk Cousins is lots better than Nick Foles in a game where he can't rely on his running game?
No, I would say that the Vikings
That's the Bears' best chance for victory.
I'd say the Vikings have got more passing options than the Bears.
Yes. Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying, if it comes down to the quarterback, I'm sure that Kirk Cousins will have more to throw to.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that he's much better quarterback than Nick Foles. I'd say they're probably very similar if you look at their careers, their actual overall completion percentages, things like that. I don't know. I haven't got it up in front of me. But if you swap those two quarterbacks round, the records would be probably the same for the teams.
Yeah. I would say that's probably fair. I think Cousins is the better quarterback, but I think you're right. I mean, there's a lot of difference in it.
And I'll get Paul to send me his pick, and
I can do it. I can do it for you. I think he's going to take the Jaguars over the Packers.
Not the Bengals over the Steelers.
No.
He generally goes for the Bengals. For some reason, I do chart these, and he's picked the Bengals quite a few weeks. I don't think he'll pick the Bengals over the Steelers.
But based on the fact that the Steelers play down to every team they play against, and Roethlisberger won't be back into practice until Saturday because of COVID, it's not bad. But
yeah, we'll see. But yeah, anyway, we'll call that the end, and we'll hopefully we'll see you next week. Hopefully with a full squad.
Happening?
No, but we'll hopefully have a full squad next week.
Maybe.
So, maybe. Who knows? But until then, enjoy the games, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.